Welcome to the Explainer. So, if you're gearing up for an exam on Indian policy, you've probably heard about the Industrial Relations Code of 2020. It's a massive deal, a total game changer for how companies and employees relate. We're going to break it all down for you, cutting right through the jargon to get to the stuff you really need to know. All right, let's get right into it. The first thing you've got to grasp is that this whole new code is about one thing: simplification. You see, it takes three really important, but let's be honest, pretty old laws. We're talking about the Trade Unions Act from way back in 1926, the Standing Orders Act from 46, and the Industrial Disputes Act from 47, and it smushes them all together into one single, streamlined code. This is a huge deal for cleaning up India's super complex web of labor laws. Okay, here's what we're covering today. First, why this new code exists. Then we'll get into trade unions, the new rules for standing orders, and then the big stuff: strikes, layoffs, and disputes. We'll also look at this new category of fixed-term work, and most importantly, we'll wrap up with the key numbers you'll definitely want to remember. So, first things first, why did we need this massive change? I mean, what was so wrong with the old way? To really get what this new code is about, you have to understand the mess it was designed to fix. Well, the old system was a mess. It was this crazy patchwork quilt of laws, with many of them dating back to the colonial era. I mean, they were written for a completely different world, a different economy. This just created a ton of confusion and a massive headache for businesses trying to follow the rules and for workers trying to understand their rights. The whole point of this new code is to finally untangle that knot. And believe me, this wasn't some sudden decision. The road to get here was a long one, starting with laws from almost 100 years ago. But the real catalyst, the big moment, was back in 2002. That's when the Second National Commission on Labor said, hey, we really need to combine all these laws. It took a while, but that idea finally became a reality in 2020. All right, let's move on to trade unions. This is a huge part of industrial relations, and the new code completely changes the game with a really clear new system for how they're officially recognized. So the code lays out a pretty straightforward definition. A trade union is basically any group that's formed to manage the relationship between workers and employers, or even between different groups of workers or employers. It's all about creating an official channel for things like collective bargaining. Now, here's a number you absolutely have to remember: 51%. It's the magic number. If one union can show that it has the backing of 51% of the workers, boom, it becomes the sole negotiating union for that entire workplace. It's a simple rule to cut through the noise of having lots of different unions all trying to talk at once. Okay, but what if nobody hits that 51% mark? It's a great question, right? Does everything just grind to a halt? Well, nope. The code actually has a really clever solution for exactly this situation. It's called a negotiating council. So if no single union gets that majority, this council is created. And here's the cool part: any union that has at least 20% support from the workers gets a voice. It's a way to make sure that even without a single majority, the main groups of workers are still represented at the bargaining table. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the official rule book for a company: standing orders. These are basically the ground rules for employment. You can think of standing orders as the official, legally required employee handbook. They have to spell out all the important stuff, like how workers are classified, permanent, temporary, that kind of thing. It also covers work hours, leave policies, and exactly how disciplinary actions are handled. It just makes sure everyone is on the same page. And now, this is where things get really interesting. One of the biggest changes in the whole code is who actually needs to have these formal standing orders. Under the old law, it was any company with 100 or more workers. The new code, well, it raises that number a lot. And that new number is 300. That's right. Now, only establishments with 300 or more workers are required to have these certified standing orders. The idea here is to make life easier for smaller and medium-sized businesses. This is another one of those numbers you want to highlight in your notes. All right, now for the really high-stakes stuff: strikes, lockouts, layoffs, and disputes. The code brings in some major changes to how all of this is handled. So first, let's just make sure we're all clear on the terms. A strike is when workers stop working together. A lockout is kind of the opposite. It's when the employer closes the workplace. The new code basically puts them in the same bucket and applies similar rules to both. This is a really big shift. In the past, you only really had to give notice for a strike if you worked in a public utility. Not anymore. Now, everybody in any industrial establishment has to give notice, and the window is specific. You have to give it at least 14 days, but no more than 60 days before the strike. And maybe the most important part, you can't go on strike if there's any kind of negotiation or conciliation process already happening. It's a built-in cooling-off period. And hey, look at that. It's that number again. 300. It's back. This same number now applies to layoffs and closures. So what does that mean? It means companies with up to 300 workers don't need to get government permission before they lay people off or close down. The logic behind this is to give businesses more flexibility. But to balance that out, the code adds a new safety net for the workers. It's called a reskilling fund. Here's how it works. For every worker who is laid off, the company has to put money equal to 15 days of their last salary into this fund. That money is then used to help those workers get new training and find another job. Okay, let's dig into something that's been getting a lot of attention, the new formal recognition of fixed-term employment, or FTE. So what exactly is it? Well, it's pretty much what it says on the tin. It's when you hire someone on a written contract for a set amount of time. When the contract's up, the job is over. It's great for project-based work, but the code is very clear that these workers can't be treated like second-class citizens. There are some really important protections built in. And this is so important to understand. Fixed term does not mean fewer rights. The law says these employees get the same pay, the same benefits, and the same working conditions as permanent staff doing similar work. And get this is a huge change. They're eligible for gratuity after just 1 year of service, not the usual 5. It's a real game changer. Whew, that was a lot. But don't worry, we're going to pull it all together now. To make sure you're totally prepped, let's do a quick-fire round of all the key numbers you need to lock in your memory from this code. Okay, this is your golden ticket for the exam. Let's run through it. The big number to remember is 300. That's for both standing orders and for layoffs without government permission. For unions, you need 51% for sole negotiating power and 20% to get on the council. For fixed-term workers, the magic number for gratuity is 1 year. And one last thing. For someone in a supervisory role to be considered a worker, their salary has to be under 18,000 rupees a month. Got it? So that brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? The whole point of this massive piece of legislation is to walk a tightrope, to give businesses the flexibility they need to grow while also making sure workers are protected. Has it actually found that perfect balance? Well, that is the million-dollar question, and the answer will really shape the future of work in India.